And a good afternoon. I'm Lon Gonzalez, and this is South Texas Midday. Earlier this week, Taft City Manager Ryan Smith filed a lawsuit against that community's mayor and 3 city council members, accusing them of violating the state's Open Meetings Act from a November meeting and reportedly interfering with his authority. The lawsuit from Smith seeks an emergency court order to block alleged unlawful actions. Smith alleging that following that November 14th meeting, council members stayed behind and discussed city business without public notice. One Taft alderman, Alonso Molina Jr., said in an affidavit some council members advised an employee working with the city's water department to bypass the city manager without any repercussions. Meanwhile, a special meeting that was scheduled for Thursday was canceled. It was reset for next Thursday, December 18th. 2 Corpus Christi men were sentenced in federal court Thursday for a series of robberies during the holiday season of 2024. Jonathan Stein and Alvaro Martinez were involved in a series of armed robberies of 3 striped convenience stores in Corpus Christi. Federal Judge David S. Morales sentenced Stein to 8 years. Martinez was given a 5.5-year prison term with 3 years of probation to follow. With many jails finding drugs soaked into envelopes mailed to inmates, the Nueces County Sheriff's Office has now moved all inmate mail to a digital system. The Nueces County Sheriff, J.C. Hooper, says that some of the correspondence sent to inmates was testing positive for things like fentanyl and other drugs. All non-legal and non-commercial mail will be sent electronically to a processing center in Arkansas, where it's scanned and sent digitally. The physical letters, once processed, are destroyed. The topic of unclaimed money from the state comptroller's office could be affecting some communities in the Rio Grande Valley. About $125 million from the over $10 billion in unclaimed money belongs to residents in Cameron and Hidalgo counties. The money belongs to businesses and municipalities as well. McAllen Mayor Javier Villalobos says there's about $4,000 belonging to his city. And he says, well, it doesn't seem to be like much to a community with a $500 million budget. Some of that money could mean something different to residents. Villalobos says people should run their names through the comptroller's website to check for unclaimed money. A federal appeals court has upheld a dismissal of a lawsuit challenging Texas's new restrictions on land purchases by certain foreign nationals. As a Texas Newsroom's Lucio Vasquez reports, the judges didn't rule on the law's constitutionality, only on who it affects.
The Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals says a Chinese citizen who challenged Senate Bill 17 can't sue because the law doesn't apply to him. The law took effect in September, and it blocks people with citizenship or political ties to China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea from buying most types of real estate in Texas. But the court said plaintiff Peng Wang has lived in Texas for 16 years on a student visa and plans to stay after he graduates, meaning he's not impacted by the law. Because of that, the judges agreed to drop the case without weighing whether SB 17 is constitutional. I'm Lucio Vasquez in Houston.
While the Refugio Bobcats fell last night to the Joaquin Rams in State 2A semifinals, there's one South Texas team left in the hunt for a state football title, and that's the Sinton Pirates. Sinton takes on West Orange Stark in their drive for a state title. A win tonight, it would put Sinton in the state championship for the first time since 2001. When they were a Class 3A powerhouse. Sinton tangles with West Orange Stark tonight at 7 at Rhodes Stadium in Katy. And today is the first day of an exciting partnership between KEDT and the Rio Grande Valley Business Journal, keeping you up to date with everything going on in and around the valley. Managing editor of the Journal, Naxieli Lopez Puente, spoke with Spencer Chihawk about the Journal and the water issue facing the valley and North Mexico.
Thank you, Lon. Happy to be joined by managing editor of the Rio Grande Valley Business Journal, Naxieli Lopez Puente. Naxieli, thank you so much for taking the time today.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me, Spencer. We really appreciate the opportunity to connect with your audience.
It's so great to get to know more. For listeners who are maybe unfamiliar with the Business Journal, what really makes you guys special?
So we are a digital-only publication that launched in September here in the Rio Grande Valley. Our publisher is the former Edinburgh Mayor, Ramiro Garza. And so, he's had this dream about starting an RGV business publication for about 10 years. And so recently he decided not to run for re-election due to some health concerns. And he decided that this was the right time to launch this new venture. And so basically, we are a news organization that covers both sides of the border. So we cover everything happening not just in the Rio Grande Valley, but across in northern Tamaulipas, in Reynosa, and Matamoros, because as you know, we're a binational region. And so what happens in Mexico, especially in the border, affects not only our valley, but the rest of the state, Corpus, you name it. So we launched in September. We're brand new. We have a website, rgbbusinessjournal.com. We have a podcast. And so we try to offer multimedia news.
That's fantastic. So many interesting things going on in the Valley and Mexico. You'd mentioned the connectivity between the two. What did you mean by that?
Anything like goods or workers, water, money moves across the border every day, and so we cannot separate each other. And usually the news, right? The US news tends to stay on the US side and the Mexican news on the other side. And so when we do see reports, we see kind of like a big picture. We focus on that angle, for our region and for the state.
Now, to get those stories, you have to have boots on the ground, people going out finding these stories. What does that look like?
So we actually have a reporter who is based in Reynosa. And so she has been part of the industrial industry for a long time, very well connected. And so what we do is we not only talk to public officials in the US and in Mexico, but we get, like you said, boots on the ground. We talk to the farmers, we talk to the workers, we talk to the drivers, the people crossing those bridges every day, because that's really, you got to put a face to it. So we're very, very proud of that we have that connection with the everyday person through our reporters who are actually on the ground, both in the US and in Mexico.
Big news right now, water in South Texas. What are you hearing from people both in the Valley and in Mexico?
Water right now is probably the biggest issue that we're facing. And let me put it this way, the Valley relies heavily on the Rio Grande River. So, like 9 out of the 10 drops of water that we consume in the Valley is coming from the Rio Grande River. And so, that river, it's not ours, it's not Mexico's. It's a shared resource. And the way that we're supposed to share is outlined in the 1944 US Mexico IBWC treaty. And right now, that treaty, Mexico's not really following the rules. And so this water issue is turning into a trade issue, because now you're hearing our local officials, we're hearing President Trump saying that if Mexico doesn't deliver the water that it owes the United States, he's going to impose a 5% tariff on all goods coming in from Mexico. And so now we have also local officials who are asking for the USMCA to include provisions that will give this treaty some teeth so that we can enforce the sharing of this resource. So very complicated, very complex issue for us, that water.
Absolutely. It's hard to believe just in this 21st century world we're living in right now. We're talking on Zoom, I imagine in 1944, when that treaty was being created, that they maybe couldn't have thought this far ahead. How is the treaty really shaping discussions today?
So yeah, for example, like I said, the USMCA, but also it goes beyond that, right? Because when, like you said, when this treaty was being formulated, we weren't seeing the drought that we're seeing now. And so we have farmers, not just on the US, but on the Mexican side, that are basically saying the same thing. Hey, we don't have water for our crops. And the thing is, we're at the end of the river, right? We're the last consumers, and water is being held up upriver in Mexico. So what we're seeing here in the valley, so are the farmers in Tamaulipas and Matamoros, because if that water is not released from upriver, then we're both stuck without that water. And so it's not good for either side for the farmers. If you follow our coverage, we recently had a 3-part series talking to sorghum farmers in Tamaulipas. And so the issue has gotten so bad there that the farmers have partnered with the transport drivers, the people who drive our goods from Mexico into the US. They have partnered and they actually had some blockades along key points in Mexico to stop trade, to be able to say, hey, Mexican government, listen to what the policy issues that we're facing. We don't have water. You cut back on all of these resources that were helping us subsidized, right, our crops. And so now you see how the farmers and the drivers are getting together and stopping trade. That obviously affects us. And there's just not enough water really to go around between both countries, it seems like.
Now, the Business Journal was amongst the first publications in the U.S. to report about the recent blockade of Mexico that tied up Valley trade. What did that situation reveal about the pressures of the border economy?
How interconnected we are, because what is happening over there with the policies in the federal government in Mexico, right, is affecting the business people there. And if it affects the business people there, like the farmers and the drivers, then they're going to stop the flow of goods coming into the US. And that's obviously going to affect us directly, because when goods don't move as fast as they need to, you lose money, and that money needs to be made up somewhere. So it's gonna have ripple effects, because if your goods and your food is not moving the way it's supposed to, it's gonna cost you more money as the consumer.
Now, the sorghum series you had just spoken about got a lot of attention. What did you learn from the farmers, and how does their story connect back to water and policy?
We had kind of been looking at this issue, from our side of the border, right? Our farmers, they're local, but we hadn't really heard from the other side. And I think that our coverage helped bring some light to that, to the fact that, we're connected through water, we're connected through trade, we're connected through families. And at the end of the day, what happens there affects us, and what happens here affects them.
More of that connectivity we had talked about earlier
Yeah.
on. Now, beyond water, the Business Journal also covers wages, security, investment, and manufacturing. What trends are you seeing right now in northern Mexico and South Texas?
So in northern Mexico, in Reynosa at least, we have seen so much economic activity. They have had, I think they've been able to bring like 10 different car dealerships in the last 4 or 5 years. Walmart, which used to be in Reynosa, and I can't remember the date, but I want to say about 10, 15 years ago, the Walmart there burnt down. And Walmart said, goodbye. We're not staying here. And, a lot of it had to do with the insecurity in Mexico. But now Walmart has announced that they're returning to Reynosa, and they're investing a lot of the money that they're going to invest in Mexico here in northern Tamaulipas. And so, you have Tim Hortons opening up its fifth location. I think there's like maybe one Tim Hortons near us, and I'm saying maybe San Antonio. We don't have one in the valley, but Reynosa has the fifth one already. So yeah, Reynosa, they're manufacturing right now. When it comes to manufacturing, because of all the threats on tariffs, that's really put a pause on the investment that they're seeing. We haven't really heard about layoffs or anything like that, but it's more people being apprehensive about, wait, should I really expand? Should I really hire more people? Because remember, Mexico just announced that starting January 1st, the wages in Mexico, the minimum wage is going to go up. And the issue here is that in the border in Mexico, their minimum wage differs from the rest of the country. It's not the same. And so our manufacturers are saying, okay, they kind of were expecting a higher raise to the minimum wage. So they're kind of okay with it, but they're saying between these tariffs, between the wage increases, like you're kind of putting us in a very tight spot. And so, there is investment, there is growth, especially on the retail side. But when it comes to the industrial side, there's a little bit more apprehension simply because of all of the policy issues that are happening between both countries.
I am just so surprised about the Tim Hortons. I'm sure our snowbird listeners will be very excited. They don't have to go back up and hang out near the border of Canada to get some Tim Hortons. They can just come down and
Right.
visit South Texas and northern Mexico. Wow.
Yeah, fifth, and I think they've done it in like the past 2 or 3 years. Like it has become a favorite amongst the northern Tamaulipas people very quickly. So yeah, lots
So
of growth.
fun. Now, one fantastic thing when you visit the Rio Grande Valley Business Journal website, there's a data portal. Why is that important for people to access, and how can investors, business owners, or curious people use it?
We really wanted that component, right? Because nowadays data is king. And nobody appreciates that type of information more than people who are weighing financial decisions, right? Because at the end of the day, wherever you're going to locate, wherever you're going to invest, you want to know what the region looks like. And so you can talk to people. And then there's the hard numbers, right? The thing is, in the valley, we have 48 different cities. And so getting that information from every city is quite the task, especially if you're not from the area. Because remember, the Valley is seeing a lot of outside interest, a lot of outside investment. And so we wanted to create a centralized location where anybody that is, like you said, curious, wants to know more about the area, or wants to make a financial decision, they can come to our website, to our portal, and see everything from sales tax figures to airport activity, international bridge crossings, bank deposits. And not just data from the US, but data from Mexico as well, too. So yeah, we have that amazing data portal, and we invite everybody to subscribe and to take a look and really see those figures and see how the valley is changing.
For listeners who want to stay informed, how can they subscribe to access your reporting and your podcast?
So very simple. They can visit us at rgvbusinessjournal.com and they can subscribe for less than $1 a week. And they'll get insights when it comes to businesses, which ones are coming, economic trends, our data portal. And so, yeah, we even have podcasts as well. So we invite your listeners, if they want some more information, some more podcasts, to visit our website as well. And that website again is rgvbusinessjournal.com.
Noxielli, I want to thank you so much for taking the time here today to chat. It's been so fun getting to know more about the Rio Grande Valley Business Journal. Thank you again for the time.
Of course. Thank you so much for having us, Spencer. It was a pleasure.
You've been listening to South Texas Midday. I'm Lon Gonzalez.